July 13th, 1985. 6:41 p.m. Wembley Stadium, London. 72,000 people filled the stadium. Another 1.9 billion, nearly half the world's population, were watching on television. Live Aid, the biggest concert in history, was in full swing. Over a dozen acts had already performed. U2, David Bowie, Elton John. Legends, all of them. But none of them had done what was about to happen. Freddie Mercury walked onto the stage wearing a white tank top and jeans. No costume, no theatrics. Just Freddie, a piano, and 3 bandmates behind him. Queen had 20 minutes. Just 20 minutes to remind the world who they were. Because by 1985, many people had forgotten, or thought Queen was finished. This performance would prove them all wrong. What happened in those 20 minutes is now considered the greatest live rock performance of all time. And it almost didn't happen. Before I share this incredible story with you, if you want to discover the real stories behind music's most legendary performances, the preparation, the pressure, and the moments that define careers, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because what I'm about to tell you is the story of how one band, given just 20 minutes, changed everything. In 1984, Queen was in trouble. The band had been one of the biggest rock acts in the world throughout the 1970s and early 1980s. Bohemian Rhapsody, We Will Rock You. Another One Bites the Dust. Massive hits, sold-out stadiums, global fame. But by 1984, cracks were showing. The Hot Space album, released in 1982, had been a commercial disappointment. The band had experimented with disco and funk, alienating their rock fanbase. Critics were harsh. Sales were weak. Tensions within the band were high. Freddie Mercury had started focusing on his solo career. Brian May, the guitarist, and Roger Taylor, the drummer, felt sidelined. The media began running stories. Is Queen finished? Has Freddie Mercury outgrown the band? Freddie didn't help matters. In interviews, he seemed indifferent about Queen's future. We'll see what happens, he'd say with a shrug. Brian and Roger were frustrated. They'd built Queen together. But Freddie, the frontman, the voice, the face of the band, seemed ready to move on. Then came 1985. The band regrouped. They released The Works, an album that performed better than Hot Space, but still didn't reach the heights of their earlier successes. Queen was working, but they weren't dominating. They weren't the unstoppable force they'd once been. And everyone knew it. In late 1984, Bob Geldof, the lead singer of the Boomtown Rats, had an idea. Africa was in the grip of a devastating famine. Millions were starving. Geldof wanted to raise money through music. He organized Band Aid, a charity single featuring dozens of British and Irish artists. Do They Know It's Christmas? Became a massive hit, raising millions. But Geldof wanted to do more. In early 1985, he announced Live Aid, a dual-venue concert to be held simultaneously at Wembley Stadium in London and JFK Stadium in Philadelphia. The goal? Raise as much money as possible for famine relief in Africa. The lineup, the biggest names in music. U2, David Bowie, Elton John, Paul McCartney, The Who, Led Zeppelin reuniting. Phil Collins performing at both venues, flying on the Concorde between London and Philadelphia. Mick Jagger, Tina Turner, Bob Dylan. It was unprecedented, and Queen was invited. Freddie's initial reaction was skeptical. Why would we do this? He asked their manager. We're not in our prime. We haven't had a major hit in years. Why embarrass ourselves in front of 2 billion people? But their manager, Jim Beach, pushed back. This is Live Aid. Everyone will be watching. It's a chance to remind the world who Queen is. Brian May agreed. Freddie, we have to do this. It's bigger than us. Freddie finally relented. Fine. But if we're doing this, we're doing it right. Queen was given a 20-minute slot. That was the rule for every band. No more, no less. Bob Geldof wanted as many acts as possible, so time was strictly enforced. 20 minutes to set up, perform, and get off stage. Most bands treated their 20 minutes casually. They'd play 3 or 4 songs, maybe throw in some banter with the audience, and call it a day. But Queen approached it like a military operation. Freddie, Brian, Roger, and bassist John Deacon sat down and planned every second of their set. They studied the clock. They timed every song. They cut intros, trimmed solos, eliminated anything that didn't serve the performance. The goal? Maximum impact in minimum time. They rehearsed for 3 days straight at Shaw Theatre in London. They ran through the set over and over, refining, tightening, perfecting. Freddie worked with a vocal coach to make sure his voice was in peak condition. Brian adjusted his guitar tone. Roger tweaked his drum setup. Nothing was left to chance. The final setlist was Bohemian Rhapsody, abbreviated version. Radio GAGA. Hammer to Fall. Crazy Little Thing Called Love. We Will Rock You. We Are the Champions. 6 songs. 20 minutes. Every second planned. Freddie also made a specific decision about the performance. No gimmicks. No elaborate costumes. No over-the-top theatrics. Just him, the band, and the music. He wanted the performance to be raw, powerful, and direct. Let the songs speak, he told the band. On July 13, 1985, Wembley Stadium was buzzing. The day had started at noon. Band after band took the stage. Status Quo opened the show. Then Style Council. The Boomtown Rats. Adam Ant Ultravox. Spandau Ballet. Elvis Costello. Nick Kershaw. Sod. Sting. Phil Collins. U2 delivered a powerful set, with Bono famously pulling a girl from the audience to dance during Bad. The energy was high. The cause was urgent. And the performances were strong. But by 6:30 p.m., after hours of performances, the crowd was starting to tire. People were sitting. The energy was dipping. The sun was still up, but the day felt long. Then, at 6:41 p.m., Queen took the stage. Freddie Mercury walked out wearing a white ribbed tank top, tight jeans, and a studded armband. No cape, no crown, no theatrics. Just Freddie. Behind him, Brian May on guitar, Roger Taylor on drums, and John Deacon on bass. The stage setup was minimal. For musicians, their instruments. That was it. Freddie sat at the piano. The opening chords of Bohemian Rhapsody rang out. The crowd, which had been murmuring and restless, went silent. Freddie's voice filled the stadium. Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? The song was abbreviated. Just the opening piano section and the operatic midsection. No full version. But it was enough. The crowd was locked in. Then, without pause, the band launched into Radio GAGA. Radio GAGA was a song about the power of radio in an age of television. But at Live Aid, it became something more. The song has a distinctive rhythm, a clapping beat. And Freddie, instinctively, raised his hands and started clapping in time with the music. 72,000 people responded instantly. They clapped in perfect unison. The entire stadium, moving as one. The television cameras captured it from above, a sea of hands, all clapping together. It was mesmerizing. It was powerful. It was unlike anything anyone had seen at a rock concert. Freddie conducted them. He raised his hands, and they clapped. He lowered them, and they stopped. He had complete control. 72,000 people, following his lead. Brian May later said, "At that moment, I realized, we own this crowd." The song ended, and without missing a beat, Queen moved into Hammer to Fall. A harder, faster song. Roger Taylor's drums pounded. Brian May's guitar roared. Freddie prowled the stage, microphone in hand. The crowd surged. People who'd been sitting stood up. The energy in the stadium shifted. This wasn't just another performance. This was something special. Then came Crazy Little Thing Called Love, a rockabilly-style song that gave the set a lighter, more playful feel. Freddie strapped on a guitar, rare for him, and strutted across the stage. The crowd sang along. The cameras caught people dancing, smiling, fully engaged. And then, the moment that defined Live Aid. Freddie walked back to the center of the stage. The music stopped. The stadium was silent except for the hum of 72,000 people waiting. Freddie raised the microphone to his lips. "I-O," he sang, his voice soaring. "I-O," the crowd responded, 72,000 voices in unison. Freddie smiled. He sang it again. "I-O, I-O," they echoed. He did it again, and again, and again. Each time, the crowd responded perfectly. Freddie played with them, stretching the notes, changing the melody, testing them. And they followed. Every single time. This call and response lasted for 5 minutes. Just Freddie and the crowd. No instruments. No backing vocals. Just his voice and theirs. It was raw. It was intimate. It was powerful. Backstage, artists stopped what they were doing and watched. Elton John later said, "I saw that and thought, I can't follow this." David Bowie, who was scheduled to perform after Queen, watched from the side of the stage. He turned to his band and said, "How the hell do I follow that?" The call-in response ended. The crowd erupted in applause. And then, the iconic stomp stomp clap of "We Will Rock You" began. The entire stadium stomped and clapped in time. The sound was deafening. The energy was electric. Freddie didn't even need to sing. The crowd knew every word. And finally, as the 20-minute mark approached, Queen launched into "We Are the Champions." Freddie stood at the edge of the stage, arms outstretched, leading 72,000 people in a massive sing-along. The song built and built, reaching its emotional climax. When Freddie sang the final line, "We are the champions," his voice cracked with emotion. The crowd roared. Queen's set ended at exactly 7:02 p.m. 21 minutes. They'd gone 1 minute over. But nobody cared. What happened next was immediate. As Queen walked off stage, the other artists backstage stood and applauded. Elton John hugged Freddie. Brian May and Roger Taylor were in tears. Bob Geldof, the organizer, said later, "Queen were absolutely the best band of the day. They played the best, had the best sound, used their time to the full, and Freddie was just incredible." The media reaction was instant. Newspapers the next day ran headlines like "Queen steals Live Aid" and "Freddie Mercury, the king of Live Aid." Critics who'd written Queen off just a year earlier now called their performance the greatest live rock performance of all time. And the public responded. Within days, Queen's Greatest Hits album shot back to #1 on the UK charts. Bohemian Rhapsody re-entered the charts. Radio stations around the world started playing Queen songs again. Tour promoters called, begging Queen to book dates. The band that had been struggling, that had been written off, was suddenly back on top. But more than that, the performance cemented Freddie Mercury's legacy. Before Live Aid, Freddie was seen as a great frontman. After Live Aid, he was seen as the greatest frontman. The performance showcased everything that made Freddie special: his voice, his charisma, his ability to connect with an audience, his command of the stage. In the years that followed, Live Aid became a defining moment in rock history. Documentaries were made about it. Books were written. The performance was analyzed, studied, and celebrated. And every single time, the consensus was the same. Queen's 20 minutes at Live Aid was the pinnacle. Freddie rarely talked about the performance in detail. In interviews, he'd smile and say, "We just did what we do. We gave everything we had." But those who were there, the band, the crew, the other artists, knew it was more than that. It was a moment of pure, undeniable greatness. Brian May said in a 2005 interview, marking the 20th anniversary of Live Aid, "That performance saved Queen. We were on shaky ground. But Freddie reminded the world why we mattered. And we rode that way for the rest of our career." Roger Taylor added, "Freddie was born to perform. But at Live Aid, he was more than a performer. He was a force of nature." Freddie Mercury passed away on November 24, 1991, from complications related to AIDS. He was 45 years old, but his legacy endures. And when people talk about Freddie, they almost always come back to Live Aid. Those 20 minutes. That performance. That moment when one man commanded the attention of 1.9 billion people and reminded the world what it means to be a rock star. In 2005, a poll of music industry experts ranked the greatest live rock performances of all time. Queen at Live Aid came in at #1. Not just the best performance of 1985, the best performance ever. July 13, 1985. 20 minutes. 72,000 people in Wembley Stadium. 1.9 billion watching on television. And Freddie Mercury, standing on that stage, proving that greatness isn't about elaborate costumes or expensive production. It's about raw talent, absolute confidence, and the ability to connect with people in a way that transcends music. Queen went to Live Aid uncertain. They left as legends. And it all happened in 20 minutes.